Consumers want to know the facts about the products they buy. But America's agriculture landscape is not easy to navigate. Between different companies, scientific advancement, government regulations, advertising campaigns, and an unhealthy amount of myth and misconception, anyone would be hard-pressed to make sense of it. That's where Real Ag comes in. From the producers who make your food to the store where you buy the final product and everything in between. This is Real Ag. When we think about poultry, most people think of chickens. Though chickens are one of the species in the poultry area, there is a much larger range of species in that field. Poultry is a term used for any kind of domesticated bird, captive raised for its utility, and traditionally the word has been used to refer to wildfowl and waterfowl, but not to cage birds such as songbirds and parrots. Poultry can be defined as domestic fowls, including chickens, turkeys, geese, and ducks, raised for the production of meat or eggs, and the word is also used for the flesh of these birds used as food. We will look at poultry in Kansas as we visit local poultry farmers on this episode of Real Ag. Production of Real Ag is made possible in part by an underwriting grant from
the Kansas Soybean Commission, the Soybean Checkoff, progress powered by farmers.
Poultry is domesticated birds kept by humans for their eggs, their meat, or their feathers. The term also includes birds that are killed for their meat. The word poultry comes from the French Norman word poule, itself derived from the Latin word pullus, which means small animal. Together with pork, poultry is one of the two most widely eaten types of meat globally, with over 70% of the meat supply in 2012 between them. Poultry provides nutritionally beneficial food containing high-quality protein accompanied by a low proportion of fat. All poultry meat should be properly handled and sufficiently cooked in order to reduce the risk of food poisoning. So, what is poultry?
Domesticated fowl of any kind, as far as which would include chickens, turkeys, ducks, geese, and guineas as well. The birds that were domesticated, around the world. I mean, we know that poultry has been domesticated by the recent the recent studies that were just done, where they've been able to trace the DNA for chickens back 12,000 years and turkeys back 7,000 years. So those are the fowl that were domesticated and became part of the farming system and the industrial system of the world.
Honestly, from my perspective, I would just say, all forms of animals with wings that lay an egg, if you will. Ducks, turkeys, chickens, guinea fowl, peafowl. I consider all those poultry, if you will. Anything that produces an egg, so to speak.
I think of it from the farming angle. Anything that we raise for, food or fiber. About any bird species you can think of, from broilers that you eat for chicken or turkeys, egg production, even things like ratites for ostrich and things like that.
Many rural and even urban homeowners have taken up raising their own poultry for the collection of fresh meat and eggs. Often their flock is made of chickens, geese, ducks, turkeys, pheasants, or quail, and can become a part of the family. These new family members are a simple way to self-sufficiently care for the family, yard, and garden. What are the pros of growing and breeding poultry?
There's all kinds of benefits. I mean, obviously the first one is I'll never run out of food. if that ever happens, I've got plenty. I got a stockpile here. Chickens are fascinating creatures. They remind me of little dinosaurs running around. Chickens are important to preserve the culture and the history of what's here, and to preserve it right, and to preserve it the way they were meant to be. I breed turkeys to hatch them out for chicks, and to spread my flock and my line to somebody else's flock and somebody else's line. The breeds that I carry are popular breeds with other breeders. So I love the fact that people will get in touch with me and want my line that I've spent time raising and perfected, and just put my TLC into. Turkeys are amazing. You get turkey eggs, which you can eat. But more importantly, I mean, they're dual purpose, so you got eggs and you can eat them as well. Their attitudes are just so chill. They can be aggressive, don't get me wrong. I mean, I got a turkey that'll jump up in my Polaris with me and go cruising with me. You know, I mean, they'll just come, they'll eat out of my hands, you know. It all depends how you raise them. They're awesome pets. Really what all these animals are for me are pets. Pets that I take care of, pets and friends that I talk to, hang out with, and share with people all over the country.
In our state, we have an opportunity for growing birds in a very sustainable manner. And what I mean by that is if you look at a lot of commercial birds across the United States, they're grown in areas where they have concentrated litter, and it's difficult to use the byproduct nutrients in that litter, like nitrogen and phosphorus. And in Kansas, we have wide open spaces, and we have the crops that need those nitrogen and phosphorus nutrients. So it's a hugely sustainable entity here in the state for sure.
Despite the numerous benefits of raising your own poultry, there are still many disadvantages as well. Common health problems in chickens, for example, are fowl cholera, coccidiosis, avian flu, fowlpox, Newcastle disease, and salmonellosis, which all will happen at some point during your time as a poultry farmer. Sometimes diseases, such as avian flu, can be transmitted from birds to people. Additionally, some birds do not excel in every environmental condition. The problem that people face is when the weather becomes too hot or cold for the birds they intend to raise, there can be health issues with some species. Too much or too little humidity in the air as well can be a problem for different birds. Before you decide to begin operations, it's a good idea to look at the optimal conditions for each species that you want to raise. There are many other issues that can be detrimental to poultry farmers and breeders, including zoning issues and acquiring the right amount of feed. What are the cons of growing and breeding poultry?
If you're getting into chickens, you're going to experience loss and a high volume of loss. And that's something that I had to really overcome, because that's the number one cause, if you ask me, on why people get out of chickens, because everything tries to kill chickens. You got predators, you got disease, and then you got the chicken. I mean, they try to kill themselves. I mean, if it's 0 degrees outside, they want to go outside and they just want to sit there and die. You got bugs, parasites, everything tries to kill chickens. So it's very challenging to have a healthy and maintain a healthy flock. Biosecurity is very important. You don't want to, go to somebody else's farm, somebody else's hatchery, and then, come back to your farm. Because the disease that these carry will transfer back to, farm to farm to farm. So biosecurity is very important. I mean, you've got to be really careful. You got to, you got to deworm them. You've got to make sure that that they're in a healthy environment. That they've got room to thrive and grow. So there's a lot of negatives to chickens, and if you ever have a favorite one, God forbid, or you take a picture and put it on Facebook, that's the one, So loss would say is my biggest challenge. Your typical backyard farm that starts out with poultry is going to come in contact with mites. Mites is going to be, one of the biggest parasites that, are bugs. It's almost like a lice. That's going to be one of the biggest things that somebody might come in contact with when they're starting out with chickens. And what mites are, they're little bugs, and they get on their skin and they just multiply. And they literally, like little ticks, they will suck the blood out of them and they'll die. So, it's very important to know how to treat for mites. What I found is education is the key to all this. Most people don't know how to take care of chickens. Think it's as easy as, I just throw chickens out there and they make me eggs, So the disadvantages to raising any kind of poultry, whether it be ducks, turkeys, goose, mama goose over there, and chickens is all these little things. There's so many different parasites and diseases. So obviously mites, obviously respiratory is really bad for chickens. Wet conditions, cause them to get respiratory infections. Well, when a chicken gets respiratory infection, they become swollen and it automatically goes to their sinuses and they can die from it. Another big obstacle in the poultry world is there's not a lot of avian doctors out there. You know, when you spend $5 to $15 on a baby chicken or even an egg layer, the last thing you want to go do is have a $150 to $200 vet bill. So a lot of times people won't even know what they're battling or what they're dealing with, what kind of disease it is, what kind of parasite it is, what's going on with them. They just put it down, they cull it and move on. Well, some of these diseases, they won't just go away. You can actually transfer them and transmit them into generations. Some of these diseases will actually transfer through the egg into the baby. Somebody could get something from a wild bird, avian influenza, polium, you know, I mean, it's just, there's so much stuff out there that the normal backyard hatchery or farm can get and pick up just from the wild, and people really don't know what they have or how to treat it or anything, and before you know it, I mean, it can wipe out your whole flock. And then people get deflated and they just quit. So it's very important, you know, obviously one, biosecurity, people in and out, you know, birds in and out. You know, it's very important that you don't just go to a local sale and buy birds and then just throw them in with your flock.
Well, you know, we've had an avian influenza outbreak in 2015. It was widespread. We ended up having to eliminate a lot of birds, and then it's disappeared over the next year or so. And this has happened throughout decades. This past year it came back, and it's resurged across the United States. But one of the differences we see is it seems to be kind of hanging around this time. It doesn't seem to be clearing up. It seems to be being moved about by wild birds. Some of them are migratory birds, some of them are local birds. And so they've kind of started a local source that can circulate from your birds locally instead of just seasonally. And that's made it much more difficult to control. There are no easy options that will guarantee you 100% protection. Sometimes I just tell people it's just bad luck because the virus can drop from the air, it can be blown in the air, it can be brought in by mice, it can be brought in by a plant rolling across your facility. It just depends on what the virus is on. So it can be bad luck, but what I always tell people, if you have practiced really good biosecurity, no matter what kind of facilities you have, every time you do some step of biosecurity, you're kind of buying one less lottery ticket. I like to tell people that biosecurity is hugely important, no matter if you're free range or no matter if you're commercial. Just being inside of a building doesn't necessarily, as we've shown, 100% protect your facilities. The way we control the virus is to eliminate the birds that are infected. That's been a policy that's been in place for a long time. It's been very successful. You know, I think the industry now, all of us are starting to worry that this may require going to another step. And that would probably include some type of vaccine program. We have a vaccine for it. We can certainly eliminate death and mortality from avian influenza in birds. Other countries have gone that route, and it helped, but it didn't eliminate it. The reason we want to eliminate it is because we want to make sure we don't have any mutations where it becomes even more deadly. That's the goal.
Run by Danny Lang, Peckerhead Hatchery is a poultry hatchery in Andover, Kansas, where many of the birds grown and cared for there are used for breeding, eggs, and shows. Currently, they are Danny's part-time job, as he runs a pool installation business as his main job. So what does Peckerhead Hatchery do, and why does Danny do so much work for these birds?
I got into chickens during COVID, you know, for my wife, just kind of keep her mind off of it, and we went and got some, you know, homesteading and went and got some chickens, and come to find out, she doesn't like birds. So I just kind of got into, you know, going out and take care of them, feeding them, and I really enjoyed it. It got my mind off of COVID, all the politics, everything. I could just relax when I'm out here. And there's plenty to do out here, you know, tinker, build structures, you know, learn about all the different breeds, learn their habits, and they're amazing animals. They just kind of take all the stress away whenever you're out here with them. You know, I went from 4 chickens that I started out with to 40 pretty darn quick, you know, and it was just getting into, you know, the different breeds that are available, you know, and oh, this color would be nice, or oh, this one lays this color egg, you know. It was more of a hobby that started. Well, I eventually got up to about 100 chickens pretty quick, and then I do everything backwards. So I get all the chickens here and then I'm like, oh crap, where am I gonna put them all? So then I have to build structures. I have to buy coops. It kept me very occupied, very busy. Then my friends started messing around with me and calling me the peckerhead guy. It stuck, and they were like, well, hey, you ought to, this person wants a chicken, this person wants to buy this. They're like, you ought to make a Facebook page, and so that's what I did. I made a fake Facebook page for my friends, and I just released it to my friends. Well, within a month, it just blew up, and I had everybody around the local area hitting me up wanting to, hey, we're looking for hatching eggs. Hey, we're looking for chicks. Hey, we're looking for egg layers. That's how Peckerhead got started. I want to still enjoy this, so I get breeds that I enjoy working with. I've had peacocks, I've had peafowl, I've had, you name it under the sun. I've had pheasants, I've had all kinds of stuff, but what you see here right now is what I truly enjoy working with, and that's the breeds of poultry that I have right now. So many varieties of chickens, but also turkeys. I love turkeys. I love their just peaceful mannerism. They're just very laid back. They're easy to work with, and they're very friendly. My focus is focusing on the best quality of the breed standard. So if I'm gonna have let's just say Ayam Samani, I'm going to have the best Ayam Samani that I can have. I'm gonna have everything about that bird is gonna be to the standard of perfection. I mean, everything you see here, I've built with my two hands. I've brought in, I've grown, I've hatched. Borderline an obsession, I guess. Really interesting and really intrigues me that now I've got people all over the country seeking my birds out, my flocks out. I've got kids that show 4-H, that I really am involved in 4-H, so I breed birds out so they can go and win titles, and they can go and show these birds, and my bloodline gets spread around. So, it's just something I love.
The Good Shepherd Conservancy is a nonprofit organization committed to its mission of safeguarding biodiversity through the use of standard-bred poultry and historical purebred lines of livestock for agricultural use. They engage in conservation, education, and research and development in collaboration with farmers, poultry producers, scientists, consumers, and culinary professionals. Located in Lindsborg, Kansas, Good Shepherd Conservancy is dedicated to its mission of saving standard-bred poultry throughout Kansas and the United States.
The purpose of the farm is to save and to bring back these birds back into the market again. One of the things that this allows farmers who are raising these birds and working with us and working in this co-op is the farmer literally owns everything from the beginning to end. We as the farmers decide what to feed the animals, how to raise the animals, what to provide for them, what genetics to raise. We actually own everything from the top to the bottom, from the layer hens, the breeders, the genetics, everything. Is the way it used to be, before corporate farming started. I am a poultry farmer. I'm a 4th generation Kansas farmer, and I have focused on what we call standard bred poultry. Some people in the market today call them heritage poultry, but I have really focused on standard bred poultry and putting them back into the market again, both with turkeys, chickens, ducks, and geese. And I also began to build, which this building we're standing in will be the Good Shepherd Conservancy, which is a nonprofit to help promote standard-bred poultry for marketing. Standard-bred poultry is a word that comes from the oldest agricultural organization in America, the American Poultry Association, which was founded in 1873. And it was the first agricultural organization that was founded in America to standardize the production of poultry. The APA is the one who gave the names to the poultry that we're all familiar with today, like Barred Rocks and Rhode Island Reds and New Hamps and so on, the breeds of chickens that were the chickens of our farms for 100 years or more, and before they were replaced with industrial. So standard bred means that these breeds that we are raising here on our farms meet the standards of perfection of the American Poultry Association. The main reason that I started all this was preservation, genetic preservation, and saving biodiversity. But the real reason was I've had these birds, they've been part of my family all my life. You know, some of the turkeys I have out here have been here in Kansas for over 100 years. And so I just didn't want to see them die. And many of the old people who taught me, who are all gone now, who shared with me their knowledge and also their poultry, their genetics, they're all gone. And I knew if we didn't find some way of getting them back on the farms again, getting them back on the table again for people to eat, they were going to disappear. So that really is the main reason why I started this was genetic preservation. But also I'm not only trying to save the actual bird, which is important because there is no other way of saving the actual bird than keeping the live bird. You can't, like with mammals, you can do artificial insemination and you can collect the sperm from the bull or the egg from the cow and then freeze them and combine them. You can't do that with poultry. So the only way of saving these birds is to keep the live animal. But it's also saving the history. The Good Shepherd Conservancy as a nonprofit has been in existence now for about 2 years. And it was the results of a number of people coming together to say we've got to do something more to educate people and to share this knowledge and to preserve it. So I have been working with some of the other organizations like the American Poultry Association. They're very involved and they're looking forward to having a place where these things can be kept and archived.
Dr. Scott Bayer is an associate professor at Kansas State University and specializes in companion animal management, poultry nutrition and management, and game bird production and management. He currently teaches 9 different courses at Kansas State University, including classes on poultry production evaluation and poultry production technology.
You know, we do have some commercial turkey farms here in Kansas. Some of those farms are also row crop producers with their nutrients. Some of them produce forage hays, high quality forage hays. Some of them sell their litter and companies make that into a feed ingredient for other species to use as part of a ration. So it's a way of making money off your primary opportunity to say grow chicken or turkeys. But it's also a way of making your entire farm more efficient, more sustainable, because the byproduct of one industry is the input of the next one. To me, that's just it's just really important in today, and it diversifies your farm. Certain species can go together very well, and so it gives you time if you're in contract production, especially with poultry. It's all automated. You go into a production facility today, automated watering, feeding systems, automated pickup, birds being dispatched, heading for the processing plant. We no longer pick them up or anything to improve welfare and handling. So I consider it a part-time job with opportunities to go out and maintain the rest of your property doing whatever you normally do for farming. If you look at a complex going in, you'll see 100 farms going in as a contract. Some are breeder farms and they're small. You can have a large farm, you can have a medium-sized farm. You can size your farm according to the needs of the row crops you're growing. Those 100 farms spread across 3, 4, 5 counties. You know, they're not concentrated in one small area, they're spread apart. Those are be developing, nutrients for all the crops we produce in Kansas. But we currently ship in those nutrients now. If you look at a complex, which is brand name, they don't want to pollute anybody's river. Everybody has a way of, checks and balances to make sure that's not going to happen. We won't be able to farm in this environment if we don't maintain the environment. And if it's not sustainable and economical, we won't have that job either. And that's the big issues. And the other thing too is the industry is constantly updating. And I'll give you an example. When I first came here 30 years ago, we had a plant proposed, a primary processing plant down in southeast Kansas. It moved on to another state. At the time, they were looking at 1,200 starting jobs on the lower end of pay scale coming into that area as far as primary processing. That's what the plant required. A few years later, we had another opportunity. It was 800. The most recent opportunity for primary kill was 250. So those number of jobs, they're lower income, low skill type entry-level jobs, are being, say, downsized, while the better paying jobs, the ones that run the equipment, the ones that repair the automated equipment, that pay higher and require more input, are increasing in opportunity. That's going to be important to look at. Remember that food production modernizes constantly. If we don't, we won't produce food for 8 billion. And I hate to say it, if we go to some of the systems that people propose, and we don't, even an outdoor facility, even a free-range facility, has to be run sustainably. We have to capture that sustainable dollar value in the form of some kind of increase in the product. Both welfare and sustainability are difficult to monetize. And if we can't figure out a way to do that so that we can gain income for people who are participating in it, then it's going to be something that, how are we going to produce enough food? Kansas has had its opportunities for commercial poultry production here and there, but I think if farming communities, prepared for it and saw the opportunities and determined, I worked with a lot of communities this last time around that we just determined that they didn't have the resources for what this company needed, for what broiler production or turkey production needed. And that's good, you don't want to spend your time hoping for something that you can't provide the resources for. But if we have communities that are being proactive and prepare for it, then they can have regulations in place that their community will be satisfied with when the expansion occurs.
Compared to more traditional livestock production in Kansas, the poultry industry is relatively small and unknown. Kansas is home to some innovative and high-value egg-laying and poultry genetics companies. Poultry operations require relatively less land than other livestock, and Kansas is home to abundant poultry feedstock supplies. To realize the potential growth in the poultry industry, key Kansas partners must continue to provide input and discussion to develop a long-term growth strategy. Efforts are being made to increase public education, industry outreach, and active collaboration between public and private stakeholders. This cooperative effort toward investment in the Poultry Strategic Growth Plan will hopefully result in the long-term success for the poultry industry in Kansas. We hope you've enjoyed this episode of Real Ag on Poultry. As always, you can check out this and other episodes of Real Ag on SmokyHillsPBS.org. From the producers at Smoky Hills PBS, this has been Real Ag. Production of Real Ag is made possible in part by an underwriting grant from
the Kansas Soybean Commission, the Soybean Checkoff, progress powered by farmers.